everybody, and welcome to GenFriends. I'm your host, Cheri Hudson Passey from Carolina Girl Genealogy, and we've got a really fun show for you tonight. But first, let me introduce our panelists, and then we'll introduce our special guests. First, we've got Melissa Barker, our archive lady. Hey, Melissa.
Hello, everybody.
Good to have you here tonight. We have Mary Kircher Roddy from MKR Genealogy. Hi, Mary.
Hi there.
Mary's always got these beautiful quilts that she makes behind her. So they're just, I always love to see what she's got for us every time we record. So it's another beautiful one. We've got Laura Hedgecock-Treasure, Trust of Memories. Hey, Laura.
Hey.
Good to have you here.
It's good to be here.
Last but not least on our panel is Dan Earl, our family history guy. Hey, Dan.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Good to have you here. Guys, look who we have. It's been a long time coming, but winners of season 7 Relative Race Team Red, we've got Elizabeth and Devin. Hello.
Hi, glad to be here.
We have been waiting and waiting, but you kind of got busy in the spring and you were kind of working on something. Do you want to tell everybody what you were working on? You were going to school.
Yeah, so actually finishing up grad school, which was a big hectic, juggling that, a business, and 2 toddlers in a remote state. So yeah, actually just wrapping up my master's thesis and graduating grad school. And Devin was actually doing the same.
Yeah, so I was also in grad school. So busy is an understatement, especially when you've got a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old little guy running around.
Absolutely. So we've been wanting to talk to you for quite a while, but we had to wait until you.
We appreciate your patience.
Definitely.
Could align. We can get you on here. So we are so excited to have you, and congratulations. I don't know if you know that we are very big Relative Race fans, and we like to follow the seasons. And so we very much enjoyed watching you with all the wonderful family that both of you were able to meet. And of course, you know, everything that comes with it, the challenges, the racing around, the parallel parking.
You're making us tired just doing the recap.
Exactly. Well, I'm just going to start out by just asking you what has happened since you finished and you won the season. Now, I know that you went down to Florida and did a little help for some of the boys on the teams, and I'd love to hear about that. But you personally, with your families that you've met, have you been able to continue your relationships, and have you met anybody else since?
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, we just got back this past weekend from doing a family picnic with the Willis family in West Virginia. So it was the first time all 4 siblings were together, which was awesome. I was fortunate enough that actually for my graduation that, you know, my birth father, Jerome Willis, was able to come out. My sisters were able, and Angelica and Jennifer were able to come to my graduation. In addition to that, it was a very special weekend, I should say, because what wasn't portrayed on the show was how I got connected to my biological mother. And so there was a great uncle who and his daughter that were the people I contacted that got me connected to my birth mother, Becky, and they were able to come up for my graduation. So for the first time ever, my graduation, I had members of my birth mom's family, members of my birth dad's family. It's the first time my parents, you know, got to meet, you know, all of them. So it was a very, you know, momentous weekend, to say the least. But we have definitely, you know, stayed in touch. And because Jennifer and I live so close together, our kids have been able to get together a number of times. So it's nice that we have cousins for our kids that are like on the same coast, because my oldest brother, who I grew up with, he has 2 boys, but he's out on the West Coast. So we don't get to see each other in person as frequently. So it's just nice to have even more family. And it's been an awesome journey. I was actually just texting our producer this afternoon with pictures from the weekend to, you know, just to say thanks again. And it was cool to be back actually at the at the park where some of our one of our challenges took place.
All kinds of flashbacks.
Yeah. So it was neat to kind of like, wow, to think that it was almost, it's been almost a full year since we've done filming, but it was awesome. So we've been in touch, and the relationships have continued to grow.
Same with mine. With that same graduation weekend, Liz got her master's in sociology. I got mine in educational leadership. And so because of that, my family from Florida came up to be a part of the celebration.
Yeah.
So my parents got, and actually two of my aunts, including the aunt that actually helped us watching the kids while we were on the race. So it was just really, really nice to get, all corners of our family together. And then, of course, we've done a lot of Zoom calls for the birthdays and all of the other celebrations in between. So it's been great to really see our family grow in that regard.
I love that. I love that. Now, I want to ask you before we get more into the race, just because I don't want to run out of time and not ask you, I think that ending day 10, where they, kind of stopped and went, wait, there's more. And y'all were helping, the blue team to make some changes in their life.
Yeah.
That was the most amazing thing, because you see the teams get together and you see them bond, but to see that actually in motion and happening, and the fact that you were helping them live their dreams was just amazing. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of all Relative Race fans, because that was truly an amazing thing for y'all to do. And I know that we all are just so grateful that you would do that.
Well, we appreciate that, but really have to give it back to the BYU TV network and them having the flexibility to amplify that message, because we did get a really great bond with the Pierce brothers, and but the fact that they were willing to document it in that way, I think really helped. Because we were going to get them connected to the organizations independent of what was happening on the show, but the fact that they were willing to have that be kind of the culmination of the season, I think was just a really great opportunity for us to be able to support them. And we keep in contact with them. Just talking to them a couple of weeks ago, and excited about what they've been able to do in connecting with their family in Florida.
Well, it was fun for us because we had them on the show that Monday, and then the next, and they couldn't say anything.
Right.
We realized that they were talking to us from that new apartment after.
That's right.
Day 10, and we're like, oh, they were so good about being able to keep that secret. I don't know how they did that, but we realized, oh my gosh, we were talking to them from their new apartment. So again, thank you on behalf of all of us. Thank you so much for doing that. And
to God be the glory. We were just happy to be messengers and vessels for that.
Laura, you've got a question?
Yeah, it's kind of following up on that whole thing. As when you're watching the show just on TV, it doesn't look like this season that you guys had much time to be in contact with the other teams. So I was really trying to get a feel for, how did you get to know the other teams, and specifically the Pierce brothers? And how did you get to the point where you felt confident that you could reach out and help them? Because we didn't see that part at all. It was kind of.
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at the season and you look at each episode, that time at the end of the day gets shortened. But in actuality, we're spending a significant amount of time at the end of the day talking to the other teams. And so that's really where you get an opportunity to kind of build those relationships, even though it was virtual until we got a chance to connect at Media Day. But for me, it was really their story. I'm adopted within my family, and I really felt like I was one or two decisions away from being in a very similar state, coming from the same area. And I think that that's what really got to me, was that, here are two young men who by no fault of their own, ended up in a situation that didn't allow for their trajectory to be in the most positive light by the time they become young adults. And I really felt like, man, that could have been me. And so I think that, you know, as I started to see day by day that they were meeting more people in Florida and they had a stronger connection to biological family in Florida, I said, well, you know, it must be divine intervention that we're on this season together. Because
you have to wonder about that, don't you?
Yeah, the wheels started turning pretty early.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that that our church had a campus that was, you know, right in the area, kind of almost the epicenter of where their family lived.
Don't you love that? Just so happened. Yeah.
Just so happened. So it was really meant to be. It really was.
Well, what brought you to the show? You've probably been asked that a million times, but you know, and everybody in the panel knows, and most of the people that have watched GenFriends know that I'm a parent of biological and adopted children. And so I loved the fact that the whole season, there was positive things said about the adopted parents. That's the first time that they've really, and I just cried every time I just cried every episode. And so I just, you know, did you just sit back and go, okay, now it's time to find them? Was there a certain thing that may have happened that said, okay, let's, you know, what was the catalyst, I guess, for saying, okay, now's the time?
Sure. Well, I can probably answer that. Well, I will answer that. So I've always, so I grew up in a family, if you may recall from this show, it told a little bit about my family. So I have two older brothers and all of us were adopted at birth. So everything was arranged. And so I was very fortunate in that sense. And my parents have always been very open about our adoption. I can't tell you a time where I didn't know I was adopted. So my parents were very upfront about that, which I think is extremely important. And I had a ton of conversations just, you know, asking about my biological roots. And so my situation was very unique because I was adopted into an all-white family. They didn't know when I was adopted that I was biracial. So now there's this question of like, okay, it's important for me to know some of my, you know, ethnic roots and just to have a greater sense of self. And my parents, God bless them, did as much as they could, as best as they could, with what little information they had. But so they always said, if you ever want to try to find your biological family, we will always support you. But I just had very little information. I had my birth mother's maiden last name, and I knew where I was born, and that was it. And as you know, when women get married, their last names change. So every now and then I would go on these searches on my own, and it was just very, very difficult to try to get any sort of information. And I had zero information about my biological father, like none, other than they were at the same college together. That's all I had. And so it was through an obituary that I was able to find somebody that would get me remotely close to that family. And then, you know, I sat on it for about a year. So long story short, I was, once those doors started to open, and then realizing that there was still more information that I was going to need to find out about my birth father, then it just so happened that a girlfriend of mine sent me a message on Facebook about the show Relative Race and said, hey, have you ever seen the show? Because anybody who knows me and my family, they know I'm adopted. That just kind of goes with who I am. So they said, hey, I saw the show. Have you ever seen it? And of course, you know, the internet will continue to show you these messages. And at that point, I was already pregnant with our second child. So I wasn't able to apply and I had to wait a year, but I'd started watching the show, got really excited, you know, became fans of the show and you know, was already into it. And then once I was, you know, physically able to even, you know, compete or participate, I basically said to my husband, we need to apply to this show. I need you to sit down and record this video for the application with me, and let's do it. And that's, you know, we made it happen in one take, I think, because that's all our toddlers would allow us to do.
Well, it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's something where, you know, to your point about what you were saying with just the timing of when we were on the season, I knew the moment we hit submit that we were like, it was all going to come together. Something about, I just knew that I'm like, so, because I was so pulled to do it, and because there was so much like, you know, that was drawing me to it. And so I just had a feeling that it was all going to work out. And then it did, and it's just been a really amazing ride and an awesome journey.
It was amazing. Did you really think that they were going to find any family for you? Were you surprised when you would go to those doors, either one of you? And it was, I mean, you met your dad, you met cousins, you met your sisters, you met your brother. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
all that.
I figured since we had made it that far to the process, I'm like, well, clearly they found somebody, you know, and I wasn't sure exactly who. And, you know, from seeing previous episodes, you don't know who's still around, or, you know, we were some of the oldest contestants. I mean, you know, and you just don't know life circumstances. So I wasn't sure who in fact we were going to have the opportunity to meet. I was just, you know, hopeful that I'd get more information and just about my family history, you know, worst case scenario, but best case scenario is that I get to meet everybody. And so I wasn't necessarily surprised that they found my birth father. I was hopeful and grateful for that. I was more surprised that they connected us on day 2, because that's not usually a reveal that happens later. So I was caught completely by surprise, which is why people see us now. Of course, it's like, you know, undeniable the resemblance, right? But you know, and people will ask me like, wasn't it clear? Like, didn't you know as soon as you saw him? And I said, well, no, because you don't want to guess wrong and then like feel silly. And
that's the interesting dynamic that Liz and I have is, you know, we're the first married couple on the race who are both adopted.
Right.
So if you think about it psychologically, mentally, every day, it really was a question of like, well, whose side is it going to be?
Yeah.
And so that moment when we're sitting there, you know, with Jerome Willis, and he's like, well, who do you think? That was a real moment. Like, we don't know, you know, versus some of the other contestants where, you know, there's really one person that you're expecting it to be. And so I think that added another element for us going through the race day by day, is we really had no idea whose connection was on the other side of that door. But we were very grateful that it was an opportunity for us to grow our family every day.
Oh, absolutely.
We were surprised that your father was revealed so early on too.
Yes.
Because normally that would come later on. And so we were all talking about it. Said, oh, wait, what is coming? If they have revealed your father on the
how much bigger can you get than that?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, well, I don't think there was any, they almost had to do it that way in order for the surprise element to be there, because I had so many siblings that I was going to get to meet. You know, I can imagine that the conversations were probably along the lines of, how do we keep this a secret from her for so long? She's going to encounter, you know, these siblings. But then once you saw what happened on day 6, and how all of that came together as a surprise, it kind of made sense why they had to introduce him earlier so that these other events could unfold. So it was, it was amazing. There is so much work and effort and thoughtfulness and intentionality that the production team did to, you know, really put this all together. And it's not just about the connections with the family, but it's also how those connections happen. And there's like there's special moments, you know. It was a beautiful experience, I think, every single day. So
absolutely. Mary, you had a question?
Yeah. So next morning after you've met your dad, how do you get in the car? I mean, how?
Because it's a competition. You gotta go.
Yeah.
It is a race.
Keep your eyes on the prize.
But, well, and to your point, that is a struggle. It's a lot to because, you know, you don't really get as much downtime. And I think we talked about this in like the Fans of Relative Race Facebook group. I think somebody had a question about what's the filming schedule actually like. You're up at 6 a.m. and film crews are there like usually no later than 7 a.m. and you go on your race and you do all the filming and the production stuff and you have your encounter, but then there's these interviews. So the film crew doesn't typically leave where you are till about 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And then you get a little bit of downtime without, you know, the cameras and the interviews, but then you need to sleep so that you can function and drive the next day. And so it is such a whirlwind, but fortunately, I think the families are, you know, prepped for that. And so they understand. And, you know, once the connection's made too, we realize that we can always come back and continue to have follow-up conversations and reunions, so to speak, which is exactly what we did. So.
That was great. I think the same thing. Like, oh, don't make them leave. Give them a day. Give them a day. Just pretend it's 10 days. Don't tell the audience watching that there's actually a day in between. It's really 20 days.
Yeah, which would be a lot. It would be a lot.
I know.
Take a babysitter for another 20 days.
Exactly. But it's almost a good thing that we don't get, you know, that it forces us right back into competition mode, because it is a very emotional process. And I will say, because Devin and I were both going through this every day, I mean, he was a real rock for me, because as you're driving on the highway, and that's when you start to also process and download some of these things like, holy cow, that just happened. And now like I'm on the other side of it. And like, what all does this mean? And now, of course, you still have more questions, but so I think that was also a unique thing about our experience, is how both of us were unpacking pretty emotional stuff, you know, with every encounter, and but still trying to keep your game face on to stay competitive and all that. So
I think that was probably a positive byproduct, that it was so quick. As you didn't have enough time to get really, really absorbed into it before you had to move on to the next day. And so I think that was such a relief once it was all over. It's like, oh, we got a lifetime to build now. But when you're in it, you know, you just kind of got to be able to shift gears.
Dan, you had a question?
Yeah. So you guys are kind of in a unique position to be able to answer this question, both being adoptees. Not all adoptees get to go on TV shows and have that race element, right? So what would you say to adoptees that are thinking about searching out their families, thinking about taking a DNA test? What would you say as they're on the precipice of doing this themselves? Where do they need to be mentally? Where do they need to, how do they prepare themselves for what's about to happen to them?
Yes, thank you so much for this question, because you're absolutely right. Most people are not encountering biological family through a TV show. And the one thing about it, it's an amazing experience, but I think it also romanticizes the process. And the one thing is, and some things that I talk about through Family Remixed in hopes to prepare people for this journey, if they choose to take it, because not everybody wants to, and that's totally okay. So please, by all means, don't tell every adopted friend you meet that they must find biological family, because that's not in everybody's heart and spirit, and it's important to respect that. But for those who do, understand, this is some things that my mother would prepped me with that I think was important. Understand, one, don't ever just show up and surprise somebody.
Right.
Everybody we met on the show had usually months of anticipation to prepare themselves emotionally, to talk to their respective families about it, and to get, you know, and we're already committed and agreed and open to building a relationship with their biological family member. So understand that's a very important element, is to know that the element of surprise is not always the best route to go. But if you reach out, and I've got other family members who are adopted and have gone through the process, I mean, it is a gift if you are able to make contact with a biological family member. I would say set expectations low, you know, for informational purposes. And then if things progress into a relationship, then that's just icing on the cake. But understand that based on somebody's circumstance in which they were conceived, in which the adoption happened, that, you know, there's a wide variety of context that somebody would have to, you know, that can come into play. So, you know, best case scenario, or I'm saying set the bar low and go on a journey to get information, and don't set the bar too high emotionally with an expectation for a super strong connection immediately, because it may not always work out that way. And it most definitely isn't personal, that you don't know the circumstances that that individual was going through. So those are things that I would say to help you, you know, for individuals to kind of set an even keel emotionally when going through the process, because it is heavy. It can be very, very heavy. And it's not always, you know, joyous sunshine and rainbows and surprise banquets and, you know, all of those things. That it's, you know, there's a lot of complex layers that go into these relationships. And I like to say it's unique because it's essentially connecting with a biological parent is unique because it's a stranger. It is a stranger that you have a very intimate connection with because they're responsible for your existence.
Yeah.
And there isn't any other relationship like it, but give yourself space and grace if your feelings change during the process as well. So give grace for yourself, give grace for the other person. But for those who do take it on, you know, have a strong support base. And of course, I wish them all the luck on their journey. I feel extremely blessed that my experience and my connection to both sides of my biological family has been as positive as it's been, because I know not everybody's so fortunate in that.
And I don't know if y'all can hear me. Can you hear me? My internet's doing something weird.
Yes.
So I turned off my camera so that I, you know, but I was going to say that I remember when you saw the pictures of your siblings and we came on and we talked, and my first thought was, because you just knew you guys were going to get along. They were going to accept you as a sister. And I remember thinking, I really, really hope that's what happened. And it did, but it goes along with the lines of what you were saying. You know, sometimes it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're fortunate that it did work. And so I'm just thrilled for you that it did work. And it's continuing to work. And man, you even had a whole party, you know, so that was a wonderful day.
That's by far my favorite day of the race.
It was really awesome.
Church was packed with all these people who just loved you and accepted you and welcomed you. It was beautiful. And like you said, not all adoptees get that. You know, they get they get people that they just don't want to have anything to do with them. And so that's difficult. That is difficult. Well, let's talk just for a few minutes about the race itself. You know, you got those challenges. Are you having PTSD?
A little bit. But it was all, I mean, at the end of the day,
part of
it was
the
all,
process.
part of the process. It was all, you know, it was fun.
Yeah.
Well, it's got to be a good stress reliever. You know, I know they were hard, but you know what I'm trying to say? You were thinking about doing the challenge versus who am I meeting today? And let's get in the car for a few minutes and let's run around and do silly, crazy things, you know, so.
And they are definitely harder than what they look like on TV.
Oh, well, bet they
I will
are.
tell you that you don't get the full scope of, like, you know, the distance from, you know, I'm you know, trying to hit the golf ball a certain way, which was, you know, and you also don't always see, because they can't, you have to chase down your own ball. Like for the basketball challenge, for the golf ball challenge, we had to chase down our own ball. So if you miss, I ended up doing about 50 to 100 like suicide sprints that day. And you guys just thought it was like putt-putt, but I'm like doing serious sprints. I probably lost 5 pounds just sweating, chasing down this golf ball that day. And I was just, you know, so it's definitely more intense than what it looks like on TV, but
Sure it
Poor
is.
Pierce Brothers, same day, they're in pouring rain.
yeah, and they were pouring down rain.
So you got that real life aspect of like, you have no idea what's going to happen today
Exactly.
and how your circumstances in your part of the country
Right.
on that day of the race
Compared to somebody else's.
are going to affect things. So
Absolutely. And I know that those challenges, they come up with those challenges long before they even really know who the teams are going to be.
Right.
right.
They're not trying to find something that's going to trip up, you know, Liz.
No.
Right.
They're not
We-
doing
We were all equally bad on that challenge for the most part. From like the feet talking, everybody like felt the same way about that golf challenge. Like, so,
Except Team Green.
except Team
Right,
Green.
except Team Green.
Yeah, I know, right? They were okay, but yeah. So yes, to your point, it is as they are predetermined, and I guess they actually do like trial runs with like people in the
yes.
the Salt Lake City area. So to
They've even
test
had
it
former
out.
teams
So.
come. Sometimes the former teams will come, so y'all need to get involved with that.
Very cool.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that.
That would be a lot of fun.
Team Green got it on the final challenge though, with you know, 2 women trying to do
all that
without that upper
Yeah.
body strength.
on day
It was-
10. My
Yeah, that
goodness,
day
that,
10 challenge.
that was hard.
yeah.
Speaking of day 10, the leap of faith. Oh my gosh, you did that. I was like, ah!
I know. I held my breath.
We all were holding our breath.
Listen, I just went into, you know, I'm a former Division I athlete. I just went into game time mode. Couldn't focus on the height. Just needed to make sure I extended as much as I could. And, you know, me being as competitive as I am, I'm still mad that I didn't hit the ball. But it's all good. It all came out in the wash.
It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, I would have looked at that and said, nope, that's it. We forfeit. I just don't do height. So
I don't either.
There's no way. But you went through that log when you guys first started and you were sawing through that log. That was like amazing. It was like, boom, they're done. Like, what?
There was a lot of pin-up frustration from like
Excellent therapy.
yeah, it was a lot. And I was thinking about my our sons through that challenge, and I was just like, we're gonna win for the boys, and like there was a lot of that. So all that extra adrenaline definitely helped, almost therapeutic for sure.
Yeah. I will bet that was quite it's the first time I think they've had that kind of challenge, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's tough, So you guys were fabulous through that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was absolutely amazing. I know that when you're running the race, and I'm sorry that my camera is off, but I'm worried if I don't, my internet will just go out on me. So I'm not sure what's going on with it. But anyhow, as you're going through the race, I know that you talk to, oh, I'm sorry, they're putting crazy things in our chat. No, they do that. It makes me laugh. So behave yourselves, panelists. So
it's Laura. It's always Laura.
It's always Laura and Dan. They start talking and they're just making jokes about lumberjacks and, falling through the woods. So it's all good. Anyway, so you talk to the teams afterwards, but you don't really see what's happening to them day by day. So as you're watching it, you're seeing all this stuff happen that you didn't know. What was the most surprising thing to you, do you think, that you didn't know had really happened to another team?
Good question.
And you may not even be able to think of something, but I know that I like to live tweet, and there's been team members that are live tweeting too, and they'll go, I had no idea that even happened, and I feel so sorry for them that happened, or that was so great. And I just wondered if there was anything that surprised y'all.
I think probably the biggest thing that we didn't know was how each team was affected through the challenge, right? Because at the end of the day, we all get to see who they met, right? So we know that. We don't know the details of the interaction, but we at least find out who they met at the end of every day. And you find out about you know, your time allotment, of course, because you find out where you kind of finish each day,
Right.
but you don't know the in between, right? You don't know, was it because somebody took a turn, you know, at the wrong time, or was it because of the challenge? So I think for me, that was probably the most interesting part. Was, yes, we knew how it ended, but we didn't know the story in between.
Right.
And so it was great to see how the network and the production crew kind of put that together for us. And it made it make sense in a sense, in a way, to be able to see that, you know, live when the show's aired.
I would agree with that, because we're very competitive people. So it's like, you know, to see how we matched up on the challenges against some of the other teams was really cool. But I would say one of the moments that I really enjoyed watching, particularly from one of the other teams, was when Casey from Team Black, you know, with her brother. And I think it was pretty early on, one of the first 3 episodes, I think, and she went shopping with her brother, and she was able to help with his kid, you know, do certain, you know, things for his kids. And I thought that was just like a very beautiful moment. And, you know, I thought how special, because I know with my, you know, with now my newfound siblings and these additional nieces that we now have, you know, there's kind of this auntie and uncle love that we have now. And you are now, you know, I think for us, we're certainly now invested in these children's lives to, you know, for sure. So I thought I really appreciated seeing that moment for her and for her brother to be able to, you know, bond and connect in that way.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing for I think it was day 4 with Team Green, where she met Marge, who, you know,
yes,
we
all love Marge.
That to me, you know, also being adopted and having, you know, that was really the day where they did the kind of appreciation for the adopted families.
Yes.
And it was just really nice how that all came together, to be able to honor, you know, some of the intentionality, and then allow us to show gratitude, you know, for those individuals who really made some decisions that kind of helped set the course of our lives, both individually as well as collectively. I thought that was really nice.
Well, Devin, one of the things that really got to me is what you said about, you know, if they don't find my biological dad, that's okay, because look who raised me. You know,
you know,
that got me. I'm telling you, tears. I was sobbing.
Yeah, and you know, I think that for me, especially, you know, my circumstances were a little bit different. You know, my mom was mentally ill, and so for me, the fact that, you know, my biological, you know, uncle raised me, you know, he and his wife, you know, adopted us and really changed our lives. I was happy that level of gratitude was able to be displayed in this particular season, because it's such an integral part of who I am as an individual and the family that I've been blessed to be raised by.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm grateful that y'all were all able to express that, because I think it's beautiful, and I think people need to understand that you're not doing this because you don't like your
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's not, and I was grateful that was this, we were able to tell those stories, because in addition to Devin's story, they did a wonderful tribute, I think, to all the adopted families that, you know, that were willing to participate. And so I was really excited about that, because to your point, to us, adoption is such a beautiful thing. It has been a tremendous blessing in our lives, you know, really, you know, setting up the course of the rest of our lives. And I think oftentimes people will think of adoption as a result of some tragic consequence, which isn't necessarily the case. And so part of, you know, that's also part of the mission with Family Remix, is to share more of these stories and to, you know, to get rid of any, you know, some of the negative stigma that's around adoption, and to really shed light on the positive relationships. Like, my mother and I have an incredibly strong bond. And even though we are not biologically connected, I swear we have some like psychic moments where she will, you know, I will text her right before she's trying to call me. Like, there are some amazing bonds and relationships. So to me, and part of, you know, what I want to do with Family Remix is to really amplify a lot of those positive stories. Obviously, I understand that that's not the case for everybody, but there are a number of people that have beautiful adoption stories. So I'm so glad that with this season, that because so many of us between, you know, I know Team Green and Team Black could really relate to that as well, that we got to share that side of the story, because we wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for our parents who adopted us. So
Absolutely.
much credit deserves to be given.
Can
go
you
ahead, Laura.
explain for viewers exactly what family?
That's exactly where I was headed next. Thank you, Laura.
So Family Remix is an entity that I started, and you know, I have a blog on familyremix.com, but it's focused on adoption and interracial families to empower the youth that grow up in these families, to educate the parents with some resources on how to support their children, you know, and help work through some of these conversations or emotions that come with understanding your identity as either adopted or biracial or both. And also how to, you know, enroll the villages that, you know, around them, whether it's grandparents or neighbors or, you know, extended family members. So I want it, to me, it's about creating community where we can you know, connect with like-minded families, because that was a tool that was very helpful for me to connect to other adopted kids, to connect to other biracial kids that my family was very intentional about. But then also to give, you know, resources. So because I did my research in my graduate degrees in sociology with a focus on, you know, biracial, the biracial population, I want to give solid research-based information, not just my opinion, but things that, you know, the general bodies of research are showing, to really be a valuable resource to parents, so that the next generation of adopted kids and biracial kids can have that much more confidence and esteem as they, you know, understand their identity in the world.
That's beautiful. That is
That's so cool. I have two family members that they would have been so good if they had had those resources.
Yeah.
Because even adoption groups, you know, I know my sister, you know, her daughter didn't look like everyone else's daughter.
Right.
So that's an important thing to talk about. And
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we look forward. I'm going to be sharing more content. You know, you can follow Family Remix on my Facebook page. We're on IG, but also familyremix.com. You know, we're planning some big things for November, which is National Adoption Month. So we're excited about that. So you know, we'll be sharing more details about what some of those things will look like, because we, you know, for now, any event that we do will probably be virtual, but the upside to that is that more people will be able to participate. So
we will definitely have the link in the blog post and on the YouTube
awesome. Thank you.
And so we'll definitely do that. So we do encourage people to check it out. I was looking at it earlier today. It's beautiful. And I've been wanting, I wanted you on here because of relative race, but I also wanted you on here to talk about that wonderful project. So I just think it's wonderful. Does anybody we've kept you a long time. Because we just think you're great. And we
appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
wanted to say, you know, congratulations for your win and all the positivity and just the wonderful things you've done since then. You know, it's just so refreshing, though. You know, it really is. It's refreshing that, like we talked about at the beginning, that day 10 and that wait, but there's more. And to see
I appreciate hearing that feedback, because we knew it was coming.
Right? Yeah.
But it was, you know, it's kind of interesting because we, you know, you can't gather in groups and do a watch party, so you don't hear the raw reaction that other people have to this moment. But you know,
believe me, it was amazing. The live Twitter was going crazy, the Facebook pages were going crazy, everybody was just so thrilled. And so you've upped the bar.
No pressure
right?
You really have. Well, congratulations again on your win, and thank you for coming and talking to us. And again, I apologize to the viewers that I had to turn off my camera. I have no idea what's going on with the internet in my house. I'm just glad I wasn't kicked off. So with that, we will say bye, and we will see you next time on GenFriends.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for having us.